So we're going to make a soft serve mix for our Carpigiani machine. We're going to use the Ice Cream Stabiliser. This works really well in the soft serve. Slightly different ratio, but still the same mix. So we've got, and doing this mix, we can use fresh dairy rather than using a pasteurised premix of something like that. And it also allows us to flavour it depending on how we want. So you need a nice large container because we're going to make quite a large amount of mix. So I've got a nice clean bucket. So I'm going to take my milk. Then I've got double cream. Goes in. Caster sugar. Ice Cream Stabiliser. Just take a whisk to just start mixing it all in. And then we're just going to use a stick blender just to blend that all in to get it nice and smooth. Then for the flavour, I'm going to use fresh vanilla pods. So I'm just going to split these. Obviously, you can use a vanilla compound. You can use a vanilla extract. Just depends. But for this one, we're going to use pods. All of that goes in. Make sure you don't waste any of it. Then we'll just give that a good stir. And I'm going to leave that now just for about 12 hours, just to let all the vanilla infuse into the milk and the cream. And also, I just find with the stabiliser, it's a bit better if you just give it about 12 hours just to fully hydrate. You end up with a slightly nicer texture. Once we've left that, we'll pass out the pods as well. So we're going to make our cone mix, just a fairly basic mix, just altered it slightly. We're using a little bit of double cream in it, just to give it a bit more sort of richness. And we're going to use a little bit of speculoos spice, because that works quite well with the flavours. But you could quite easily swap the spices out for different things to make it however you wanted it to be. So we just got egg whites and cream. Into that goes our sugar. Just mix those well. Then we're just going to blend some salt and our spice. Just give that a good mix. And we've got our melted butter. And then just mix in the flour. Be a little bit liquidy at this stage, but we've just put it in the fridge for a couple of hours just to get it to firm up before we actually make the cones. So we're gonna cook our cones now, our waffle cones. So our mix has set up in the fridge. It makes it a lot easier to work with. So we've got that ready. We're gonna use the slimmer to cook these in. You can do it in a standard waffle iron. You can bake this as well, so don't think you're limited. It's a fairly versatile mix. We're going to use a slimmer. So the slimmer's quite good for this. A couple of things. You've got a heated plate at the top and the bottom, so we can set that temperature. So I've got both of these set to 170, which gives me the right amount of time to be able to roll it and get the right shape. We don't want it to cook too quickly. The other thing with the slimmer, it gives us the option on how thick or thin we want the cones to be, which we'll cover that at the end. What I'm going to do is I'm just sticking a little tiny piece of wood in the front, just as a little bit of a spacer to give me just a little bit of a gap. So I'm going to take a sort of half a dessert spoon of mix and just spoon that onto the center of the thing. And then I'm just going to slowly bring the lid down. I'm not going to use the clamp to clamp it down. I'm just letting the weight of the lid press it to get the thickness that I want. and it takes about 30 seconds to a minute to cook. And then I'm going to use this for this because I want it for an ice cream cone, but you could use any size cone to get different shapes and things like you see with these. So I've done quite a large one here, but you can see this one's really thin, so it's you can get quite a lacy effect for that. Or this one that I've done that's quite a bit thicker. So it just depends on what you want to use it. We're going to use it as to create like a 99 ice cream cone. So it's got to have a bit of thickness to it to be able to hold it. It just depends on what you want, which I quite like. It gives you that versatility of how thick you want the mix to be, depending on what you're going to use it for. I'm just going to, just with my hand, just apply a little bit of pressure to it, just to squeeze it out slightly. I'm just using a spatula to lift it up. These are non-stick. So you don't want to use anything metal because you'll scrape it and ruin it. Once we've got our cooked, just quite quickly, take our mould, roll that up, just press it to get it really firm. Just leave that a minute to cool. While that's cooling, we can get our next one on the go. And if I want it to be slightly larger, I'm just going to put slightly more mix in. So we're going to make a little chocolate flake to go with our 99. So we're just going to use some 45% Caribe Luca chocolate, which we've got in our Choco Mate. We've already got this tempered. We've used a little bit of cocoa butter to seed that, which works perfectly to increase the fluidity and softens the chocolate. The Choco Mate works by gently heating the chocolate to the desired temperature for consistent and controlled tempering. So we just take our tempered chocolate out onto a marble, and then we're just going to spread that quite thinly, try and get it nice and even, and then we're going to use the scrapers just to kind of create the perfect ripple in the chocolate that's characteristic of a flake, but we also want the flavour of the Luca chocolate to come through. And once we pair that with our vanilla ice cream, hopefully we'll end up with something quite special. So we're going to make a very simple strawberry sauce to go on our 99. So I'm looking to make this really strong. You can obviously adjust this recipe depending on how you want, but I want it to have a real kick of strawberry. So I'm using as the base, I'm going to use the wild strawberry compound. I'm also going to use just a little bit of the rose compound, just to zhuzh it up a bit and add a few floral notes, and rose and strawberry is a lovely combination. So I've got the strawberry compound, wild strawberry compound. Then we're going to add our rose, not a huge amount, it's just to give a little florally note. And then I'm also just adding just a little bit of the strawberry flavour burst. And then I've got some just stock syrup, equal sugar and water, which I'm just going to let it down with into there. And just give that a good stir. And then just a good pinch or two of malic acid. Again, we want it to have a little bit of acidity just to cut through the ice cream. And you can adjust that by adding a bit more. If you want it to be a little bit not quite as strong, just add a little bit more syrup to it. You can completely adjust this quite easily. And then all I'm going to do, the wild strawberry compound has just got some little bits of strawberry in it, just so that it goes through the squeezy bottle nice and neatly. I'm just going to pass that through a sieve just to remove any bits of fruit, and we should end up with a lovely clear, nice and shiny, glossy, strong strawberry and rose syrup that's going to have a real kick to it. So the mix has been shown through the machine. We've got ready, so we're all ready to go. What I quite like with this machine is you've got the different nozzles with the different shapes and different sizes, but Joe at Carpigiani gave us this nozzle, which I think is really cool. So with this one, you can then use any normal piping nozzle to get the different styles and how you want it to come out. So I think that's a great little attachment. So I'm going to pick a slightly smaller star nozzle, and we just screw that onto there. Take one of our cones. Fill that up. Just take our flake that we've made, Stick that in. Just finish that off with our sauce. And now we've got our 99.